Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I have for you Kaiju number 8. Alright, so what's going on in chapter 22? Well, I have to be honest. This is my most favorite chapter for Kaiju number 8 thus far, okay? It would be in a contender for my most favorite chapter for 2021 of a manga, but that belongs to My Hero Academia, and it's probably still going to stay with My Hero Academia with everything that we have just gotten now. So the chapter kicks off with Reno and Naharu waking up in the hospital after their battle with the humanoid kaiju, right? The TV's playing in the background, and it's a news station that's reporting on the emergence of Kaiju number 9. And this is the official announcement for Kaiju number 9. Remember, up until this point, Kafka was the latest humanoid kaiju, which made him Kaiju number 8. Since the battle and since the discovery of, the humanoid kaiju, he has since been dubbed Kaiju number 9. And they're looking into the correlation or the connection between Kaiju number 8 and Kaiju number 9, if there is any to begin with, but there doesn't seem to be any connection that they can find. And as of right now, they don't even know about the whereabouts of Kaiju number 9, which makes complete sense because we know that he's changed bodies from what he previously looked like. And between healing and laying low, I don't see him coming out anytime soon. We actually might get the revelation of a new villain or some sort of evil organization. You know how shonens are. It might actually turn out that Kaiju number 9 is just like a grunt, just a overpowered, really strong grunt. But Ichikawa wakes up in his hospital bed, and the first thing that he does, he's a really dope dude, but the first thing that he does is he thanks Kafka for saving him. Without actually realizing it, this man Haru is right next to him in a separate bed and is already awake and overheard everything that he had just said. Now, he doesn't give away the fact that Kafka is, in fact, a kaiju, but it brings up the question to Furuhashi that, why are you thanking Kafka? Because Kafka's not the one who saved you. The one who saved you was the kaiju, right? He remembers all of this. And so the next page and the next panels that you see are these three, bless their hearts, struggling to come up with a lie that they think that this man Furuhashi is actually going to believe. Luckily for them, he's gullible as shit and believes the first thing that's told to him without questioning it at all. Shinomaya is like, oh no, you were saved by Kaiju number 8. We're thanking Kafka because he was able to locate the kaiju's reproductive organs, which was able to aid in the destruction of it for whatever reason. It makes no sense. I mean, I guess I could play devil's advocate and say that it's possible that destroying the reproductive organs would stop an entire fleet of kaijus. It wasn't that intense. It wasn't a fleet of kaijus, but in order to stop a kaiju, when we saw this, look, it didn't make sense, but luckily for them, Furuhashi is insanely gullible and believed and ate up every word that Shinomaya told him. He does, however, wonder on page 5 why a kaiju would save a human. And again, this is just not sitting right with me because he is doing too many human things. Like, he's saving a lot of people as a kaiju, and in this universe, that's just unheard of, even for humanoid kaiju. Again, they're not surprised that he is a human kaiju. They're surprised that he's saving people. Besides saving Furuhashi and Ichikawa last chapter, he saved the platoon soldiers the chapter before, and the people are starting to take notice and question it. I wouldn't worry too much about Furuhashi because if things go as how I'm envisioning them going, it seems as though he's being set up to be the next person that Kafka trusts with his secret, right? I don't think that it's a coincidence that he doesn't have a problem with being saved by a kaiju. He actually is pretty, grateful for him, actually thanking him. And Kafka, he's standing there blushing, of course. Shinomaya punches him in the ribs for whatever reason. It's not necessary. I mean, he did save this man, so let him be happy, right? He can't draw no power from his defense force suit. Let him get his wins when he can, and he really can't even get the win because he can't tell nobody he's Kaiju number 8. Moving through the chapter, pages 6 through 19 are absolutely amazing. I love when battle shonens take time away from the characters to just be normal. Shinomaya dips out the room at some point and calls our boy Izumo on the phone and lets him know that Ichikawa and Furuhashi will be released from the hospital in 2 weeks. Flash forward 2 weeks, our boys are released and they're welcomed back with this surprise party. I promise you, it's amazing. Read the chapter if you haven't. They come back to this surprise party, and it's just a really good vibe. We get some new information about Izumo and who he is. If you remember him from when he was introduced back in chapter 4, his full name is Izumo Haruichi. He finished second place during the finals of the Defense Force examination. He was the valedictorian from the Tokyo Neutralization University, and he was the #1 prospect for the Defense Force exam, despite finishing second behind Kaguragi. So at this point in the manga chapter, the foods come out, and it's this gourmet spread of food, and everybody is shocked at what came out because apparently nobody knew that this was actually going to be here. And my first thought is, y'all didn't order this, so who's paying for it? That was my main question regarding any of this. But come to find out, actually, it's actually Izumo who's responsible for all of this food that's present here, because we find out in this chapter that Izumo's basically royalty. If we're being honest, his family owns Izumo Tech, and Izumo Tech is responsible. Well, Izumo Tech is the largest weapons and defense force manufacturer in the entire country, right? So the minute Kafka finds this out, Shinomiya was like, I'm surprised you don't know, considering their name is plastered. Well, we don't know that their name is plastered everywhere, but I mean, come on, like that's basic marketing, basic advertising. If they're a weapons manufacturer, they're going to have their insignia somewhere. And the fact that Izumo is the heir to this, it brings into question, what is somebody this worthwhile? What is somebody who's worth this much money doing in the defense force? Like, what is he trying to prove? It made sense, or at least we saw from Shinomiya's flashbacks during the defense force exam, why she wanted to join the defense force. It was pretty much forced upon her by her father. She has this massive role that she's supposed to fulfill, and apparently she's the last line of defense, or she's going to be this important key figure when she grows up, and I guess takes over as captain of one of the branches of the defense force. So with all of that being said, what is he doing here, right? Like, he doesn't seem like he has a thrill for fighting. He seems like a pretty chill and laid back dude. I'm curious to know his reasoning for why he joined. With the next part of the chapter, this is where I went from liking the chapter to loving the chapter. So the vice captain congratulated everyone for the success of their first mission, right? He even mentions that it's rare that everyone has the same day off. They all raise their glass, and I can't help but notice as I was reading this chapter that Matsumoto thinks he's slick, okay? Because it's clear when they're raising the glass, what he's hinting to is written across it, even though he's not going to outright say it for obvious reasons. They're drinking. Kafka is drinking, okay? And granted, he is the oldest, so it's perfectly legal for him to drink. But let's not be coy, all right? If I'm risking my life to defend an entire country against 100-meter tall kaijus, I'm drinking. So he doesn't outright show drinking, but, well, no. Kafka is drunk, okay? Most definitely drunk. So Ichikawa is chilling next to the vice captain, Hoshina, and he mentions that it's nice to see that everyone's happy for a change instead of, always tense because they're trying to avoid death. You get this smirking glare from the vice captain, like, bro, you have no idea what's about to happen. And just as soon as he says that, everybody erupts and starts arguing and talking about the mission. Later in the chapter, it had mentions that this is pretty much a yearly tradition, so the vice captain knew wholeheartedly with all the other defense force classes that he's ushered in that this is going to be the result of a first mission out, and everybody makes it back safely. So Shinomiya and Furuhashi, they're the first two to get into it, and you see in their panels that they're talking about emotions. So Izumo and Kaguragi get into it about how Kaguragi plays too much by the books. And then he responds and he says that Izumo is too much of a loose cannon. And this is where you get Izumo after he responds and he says that, hey, I'm always having to pick up the slack. And to a degree, I get what he's saying, but at the same time, it's like, well, if you played it by the books, you wouldn't have to pick up the slack. But considering that Kaguragi has this thing of not deviating from a mission, it might come back to bite him in the butt. I'm just being honest with you. Like, Kaguragi, you have to be able to adjust on a dime, and the fact that you're not, it's putting Izumo in danger, and it also puts you in danger because Izumo's not following directions, but you're not helping out at the same time. And lastly, and by far my most favorite moment of the entire series, ladies and gentlemen, thus far, the introduction of drunk Kafka. Okay, this man has seen the light too many times and is now living his best life because he is, like, you gotta imagine, they just cheered. Why is he already drunk? This man's already drunk. He said, I've lived, I'm out the hospital, let's drink. This man, so Kafka takes Izumo by the neck and he pulls him in like that uncle you got at a cookout that people love, but he thinks he can take everybody in a game of 21. Yeah, him. He interrupts Izumo and Kaguragi on page 14 and is like, quote, never mind that, You ought to be worried about your weak family suits. And then he mentions the fact that he wasn't able to bring a single kaiju down with it on. And I'm like, please don't let drunk Kafka spill the beans about him being kaiju number 8 and having to fight for his life to get out of that building, because as of right now, I'm still under the impression that if Hoshina found out right now that Kafka was kaiju number 8, he would smooth take his head off without a second thought at all. But this chapter wasn't even like that, for real. It was smooth, fun chapter, and I enjoyed the break from the action because, I mean, from chapter 5, we've had this non-stop action, which is amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's still nice to see some normalcy because, yeah, you want to be able to connect with characters, not always, on a personal level, and you don't get those personal moments until you get like a seated chapter like this, which is what I really enjoyed. To my surprise, Kaguragi responds and he's like, save your complaints till after you draw more power from it. I like that. These two characters haven't seen a lot of panel time so far, so for us to find out that Izumo's family is owning this massive tech that supplies weapons and these defense force suits to basically all the defense forces, all three. So for us to find out about Izumo's family and get Kaguragi talking shit is dope. I personally like that because it brings more personality to them. They literally have not been in panels since after their first introduction. I'm positive about it. We didn't see them fight originally after everything hit the fan, and we haven't even seen them fight now. This is our first for real introduction to these two characters, and I really do fuck with their personalities. He says so then after he says that to Kafka, right? So after he says that to Kafka, they get into it. They're butting heads. He says, I only respect those stronger than me. So drunk Kafka challenged this man to what? An arm wrestling contest. Like he's in the 7th grade cafeteria. He challenges this man to an arm wrestling competition, and to make matters worse, he loses. He loses when you challenge somebody to something, generally you want to challenge them to something that you know you have the best opportunity of beating them at. This was Kafka's best shot at beating Kaguragi, and he failed miserably. More arguing ensues until Hoshina has to draw order to the room, right? He draws order to the room because he has an announcement to make, and the announcement is that Kafka has now been officially promoted to the rank of general officer and is now officially made a defense force member. You love to see it. However, what he says is still alarming to me, okay? I still love it, but it's alarming. What the vice captain says is true, but in a sense, it's also cryptic. He says on page 18, quote, your findings during the operation have gone on record for substantially mitigating damages. Excuse me? Again, I might be looking too deep into this, but he says on page 14, he didn't kill a single kaiju. It was a lie when he told Oharu at the beginning of the chapter about finding the reproductive organs, so we know that had nothing to do with what the vice captain had just said. Maybe he helped with the evacuation, but was that like really enough for the vice captain to give him a promotion after his first mission, and he still can only muster 1% from his defense force suit? Dog, I promise you, the vice captain always looks like he is up to something, and he definitely looks like he's up to something in this chapter. I just don't know from what we've seen from him to justify a promotion unless it's all within his plans to figure out what's going on with Kafka. Remember, the only reason that the vice captain let Kafka join the platoon personally was to keep an eye on him. Whenever he transforms into Kaiju number 8, all of the vital signs that the defense force suits track become lost, and they basically lose sight of him. That's some suspicious ass shit, especially if your suit is the only one that does it. And again, you can only muster 1% from it. This is why I've been saying that this man really does need to work on becoming stronger without his Kaiju forms. Specifically, you have to wear the defense force suit whenever you go out on a mission. It's not an option for him not to. That's their only form of power whenever they're trying to fight these things, whenever they fight the kaijus, right? The vice captain and everyone in that control room who monitors the defense force members can see when the signal is lost and when the signal returns. Hoshina knows. If he doesn't know, he knows something. Hoshina knows. They lost his signal right before Kaiju number 8 appeared, and right after Hoshina lost, Kafka's vital signs came right back on. It's really not that hard to put 2 and 2 together. The only thing that's stopping Hoshina from directly confronting Kafka is the fact that they don't have any proof. There's no video evidence. There's no eyewitness accounts. That's all that's stopping Hoshina from, in my mind, locking Kafka up and running experiments on him. But as lighthearted as this chapter is, you can tell that this chapter is really for Ishikawa. So on page 15, he goes from frantic to relieve, because even with all the bickering and the fighting, he realizes that everybody just wants to get stronger, and that's really what he wants. He wants to get stronger so he can defend people, but he realizes that he's not the strongest. And I guess one of his fears was that nobody else wanted the exact same thing. Everybody was just content with being where they were. Pretty small-minded of you to really think, like, you know, people risking their lives and just to be basic. Like, they could have did anything, especially Izumo. Like, he literally could have done anything, but no, he's there. So I'm interested to see about what's happening with Izumo. I want to see Ichikawa grow. He's growing at a phenomenal rate. I can't wait to see what his, you know, where he ends up. But ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for y'all today. If you made it to the end, thank you. If you are new, go plus ultra and smash the subscribe button. Let me know you rock with the content I put out on this channel. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Comment on the video about your thoughts for the chapter. And like always, and until next time, I'm out.
Hostile spy plane established overhead. Multiple hostile spy planes detected.
Entering mission area. Napalm away. 83-6 is low on fuel. RTB.
Молодцы, разведчики. ГРУ, return to base.
GG.
We kicked their sorry asses.